Happy Tuesday. It's time for coffee and cursey words. Today, the lights are set to orange because I think there's fuckery afoot. Like, that's our orange rating system is one below DEFCON red WTFery. So today is orange. There is a lot to cover. Look, we need to talk. There are things happening on the interwebs and too much people who have no law degrees running around going, this person ought to be in prison, that person ought to be in prison. I'm like, y'all throwing prison around like you know something. Your girl was a district attorney for over 10 years. I'd like to talk about what those words actually mean because, look, we can't just be all out here saying everybody's going to prison because it's irresponsible. And that's not how that works. And we need to talk about how that works. So today we're talking about James Charles, David Dobrik, and Lady Gaga's dog walker and dogs, and the fact that her dogs were stolen. Those are the three topics we're covering. But more importantly, what we're really going to talk about today is the process of thinking through these things the way I think through them. So we're going to think through them together like a lawyer. I'm going to walk you through my process of evaluating stories like this online and how I parse it out so that y'all can join me on the lawyer brain train and go, oh, this is where we are talking about the law. This is how we are evaluating stories. This is how we're evaluating these things as they come up and the process I go through, because then you can start to parse out the facts and the fuckery. So we need to just get started because these stories are going to take time. I'm going to let y'all choose what one we're talking about first. So tell me, who are we talking about first? James Charles, David Dobrik, or Lady Gaga? Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. Hey there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Emily D. Baker, the badass lawyer and everyone's favorite legal commentator. I'm the host of The Emily Show, and I break down the legal shit behind the news and pop culture stories we all want to talk about. I have been a licensed attorney for over 15 years, but this is not legal advice. I should warn you, I'm a big fan of the cursey words. This channel is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not fuckery. Yep, totally started with the wrong intro, but that's all fixed now. Things happen. So we have a few things to talk about, and I'm waiting to see in the chat because my chat's behind. So I'm actually pulling up the chat on YouTube because my chat is not working at all in the back end here on StreamYard. So I'm going to just go ahead and pull up the chat from YouTube real quick so I can see what y'all are saying. And if I can't pull up questions for a minute, I'm sorry, but it is not working at all for me. So, minor technical issues. It looks like a lot of y'all want to talk about James first. So it looks like that's what's going to be up. I'm going to for sure talk about the subjects, but we aren't going to get into every single detail of who said what to who did what to who's alleging what about whatever. That's what we're not doing. What we are going to do is talk about what's been shared on social media and what the law says and the process of evaluating that. That is really, I think, the most important part of today is to talk about that. But before we get into any of that, we do need to get into court of public opinion because we have a ruling to make from last week. I forgot to grab a gavel. Where are my gavels? They're hiding. They're back there. I got a new gavel. They're back here. Nope, that's not the one. I have two gavels. The gavels can do that. It's kind of like a Friends reference. Okay, we've got two gavels. One that says Emily D. Baker, Esquire, Facts Not Fuckery, and one that says Facts Not Fuckery, Emily D. Baker, Law Nerds Unit. Since this is very SVU, we're going to use this one today because we have the Law Nerds Unit here. I don't know why my chat's not working in StreamYard. There it goes. Thanks for catching up with us. StreamYard's like, look, the law nerds are enthusiastic and I don't know what's happening. So now I can see my chat, which is so helpful. Parsing out the legal process is going to take us a minute, but law is meant for nuance, right? So that's That's what we're here for. I always say to you all, the law is a conversation, and y'all get to be in the chat and have that conversation together. Here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to cast judgment on anyone or anything. We are going to talk through this. Some people are going to be fans of the people we talk about. Some people are not going to like the people that we talk about. As always, we are not here to talk about the people. We are here to talk about the actions and the facts as we have them, and then talk about what the law says. So that is what we are doing today. I saw Diva Views asking when we got a new gavel. It's on the Instagrams. If you guys don't follow me on the Instagrams, please go ahead and do that. It's at the Emily D. Baker, but I unboxed it. I did an opening on Saturday before I climbed into bed with a raging migraine. The other thing I need to talk about is a little bit of housekeeping and what's coming up for the week, because we do that on Tuesdays. We kind of talk about what to expect for the week. So this week we have a new video premiering tomorrow at 11. The premiere is going to be a deeper dive into the Kimye divorce, talking about those lawsuits that are coming for Kanye, the Sunday service lawsuits. So we're going to absolutely cover that in more depth in a recorded upload tomorrow. I will be in the chat with y'all, because when we premiere videos, that's what I do. I get to chat. I love being in the chat and getting to talk through the topics. I will be perfectly honest, I don't love watching myself back on video. I make it small so I can hear what I'm saying so we can chat about the topics. I come to the premieres and I love premiering videos because I just want to hang out with you guys in the chat and have a conversation. So we're absolutely going to have that conversation tomorrow with regard to those Sunday service lawsuits. That's kind of the bulk of tomorrow's episode. Then on Wednesday, that is Wednesday. Fuck, tomorrow's Wednesday. God, it's March. Tomorrow's already Wednesday. What is happening? What is happening? How is it March? We're coming up on like the 1 year anniversary of everything in the US being locked down. It's so crazy to me. It's so crazy. Like, I'm off my game because of it. It's throwing me a little bit. Like, we're a year. Like it's a year. Like it has thrown me off. Like this week's just going to be weird. But guess why it's also going to be weird? We've had a break. We've had a moment where we are not talking about the Toddy Westbrook cases, but there's a response due this week. Sure is. So there was a response due in the Toddy Westbrook without a crystal ball defamation case. It is with regard to the sanctions motions. I expect it's going to be kind of I'm not going to drop it on my desk. I'm expecting a gavel drop moment. I mean, how can there not be? Brown's been dropping bombs. Saltsy's going to be dropping bombs. This is speculation. Emily speculation. When we covered the Brown motion for sanctions, I'm like, we're kicking these doors open. We're not just kicking the doors open. Like, we're coming in with a wrecking ball and taking off the fucking side of the building. So I expect that the favor will be returned in these motions. When those go up, I will take a look at how long they are, talk to the mods, and determine when we're going live, because the chances that they go up around a time when I'm supposed to be live anyway is slim. If you're not in the text crew, text emily.com. You will get a notification that I am going live. Otherwise, I update on social media at the Emily D. Baker. Don't feel like you have to follow me everywhere. I mean, you can if you want to. But I update when I'm going live on Twitter, always, on the text crew, always, on Instagram when I remember. That's the order of updating priority. And then if you're subscribed here, hit the bell and you'll get notified. But that is what I'm expecting. So we should see a response maybe tomorrow. If not, Thursday, early in the day, I'll let you know. And then Friday, we will probably cover that more, like a little bit more in depth. So we will see what happens in the Saltsy response. And we'll go live when we need to go live. It will probably be a lot. What else? That's housekeeping. We're the beginning of a new month. So the members only live stream, I'm going to post it in the community tab for members only. If you're a channel member, we will have a live stream in the morning. We alternate live streams evenings and mornings to accommodate everyone because we have people all over. So we will have that in the morning tomorrow. So that will be happening. I will put it in the members only tab. Now I think we're all caught up, and then Friday will be Friday Night Live. That's what I expect from this week. So today we're here. Hi, we're here. Tomorrow, a video premiere and possibly a live and a members only live stream. Thursday, I will probably not be on the interwebs, but we'll see if that motion drops late or on Thursday, then we'll be live Thursday and then Friday Night Live. That's what it is. That's what it is. That's what we're doing this week. If you're on the replay crew, there will be timestamps down below. Let's get into court of public opinion and then talk about this law is reason free from passion way of thinking that has become so ingrained in my soul that sometimes it's hard to step back and evaluate it and share it with y'all. But that's why we're going to talk about it live. I'm going to tell you my process. We're going to go through 3 stories together, and then I'm going to answer all the questions that I can. And that's today. But first, this one smashed. I was thinking Star Wars might be more controversial, but I think maybe where the Star Wars controversy will live is when we get into Mandalorian, Clone Wars, Rebels, and some of the Star Wars series, and then maybe some of the Star Wars stories, or if we just opened it up and did best sci-fi franchise, because then we've got to get into like Firefly and Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek. So maybe we'll have to do like a total nerd off in one of these. But OG Trilogy smashed. So there were over 1,300 votes on the Twitter. OG Trilogy smashed. And what I found from the comments, because there are quite a lot of comments here, is that a lot of you love Star Wars where you found it. And if you grew up with, being in my glorified category of the, Zennial, the Gen X millennial, the OG trilogy is what a lot of us grew up with. But then the prequels came out when I was in college, and I have a lot of fun memories. So what I saw in all of your comments was that the affinity for Star Wars a lot of the time comes from not what is the best cinematic movie, but what has the most emotional draw for you, where those movies found you in your life and how much they mean to you. And I think that's a lot of what Star Wars is for a lot of people. It is that attachment to nostalgia. It's that attachment to, I found these movies at this part in my life, and this is what they meant to me. So that is what it is. And for those of you that aren't Star Wars nerds, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. This is a solid argument, Lynn. Without the original trilogy, you would not have the others. There you go. There you go. There you go. We will talk about the episodes for sure, because we will talk about the series television shows. Yes, the Ewan McGregor versus Harrison Ford is tough. I also struggle with Kylo Ren being a more intriguing villain, if you will, for me than Vader. I really do, because Kylo is Kylo's goals. we love Kylo. All right, court of public opinion over on the YouTubes. Again, original trilogy with over 6,000 votes. Smashed. You guys smashed this one. And I love finding where you guys found it. Lady Chifa, this is fantastic. I'm from Russia, and here it's really common to love the prequels. The reason is that the original trilogy was released during the Soviet Union time and therefore wasn't shown in cinemas. The prequels were released when the country was already open to Western influence and was one of the first high-budget movies out there to watch. So many people watched it, got excited about the setting, and many decided to watch the original films afterwards. This is why so many Russians love the prequels. They were the first encounter with Star Wars for the entire country. Also, Jar Jar is less annoying in the Russian voiceover. Once again, Lady Chifa, I love that. I love learning how different cultural events and societal events and political events impact culture. And so the impact of what was going on politically and in society in Russia versus when these movies came out is a really interesting thing for me. And I love that you shared this comment with us, because it's just, again, where we found these movies in our lives. bring special attachment to them because it's more than just a movie. It is a movie, but also your childhood. If you were a kid that grew up with Star Wars, playing with like Ewoks, I had a whole Ewok like treehouse set with like the little Ewoks and little like Luke and Leia and yes, they're brother and sister, but we thought they were the love interest at first. It was very confusing, but I love seeing where people found these movies and what they mean to them in their life. So I love it. I love it. I love it. So I love all the comments. I love seeing the comments. I love the Court of Public Opinion so much because I love all of you. And this makes me so happy. So we have to get into talking about the process of thinking, which is a weird thing to talk about, but it needs to be talked about more. Like, critical thinking is so, I want to say critical, and then I'm like, God, Emily, do better. Like, you can pick better words. But critical thinking is so important to us because it's the way we process the world. And right now, particularly during 2020, we are still struggling with full COVID fatigue, lockdown fatigue, all of the fatigue. But we're also right now, in my opinion, in a very emotionally informed society, especially when it comes to culture within social media and culture within conversations. And most of those conversations happening on social media. They're very, very informed by reactionary emotions. And there is a way, I think, to acknowledge and honor emotions and feelings and not discount them, while also moving away from that and saying, but what are the facts? So being able to say, these are the feelings and these are the facts is where we get to facts, not fuckery. And I know Ben Shapiro likes to say, facts don't care about your feelings. There's a lot of people that talk about facts in different ways. And while facts might not care about your feelings, that doesn't mean we can't care about each other's feelings. And this is where I'm finding difficulty, because when we don't understand each other's feelings, we can't have conversations about the facts. So I see kind of two sides of, look, you, other person, have to honor and adhere to my feelings. And that's not it. But also, it can't be, I think your feelings are invalid. I think your feelings are nonsensical to me. I think your feelings are too much feelings, so I'm going to invalidate those too. That's not it either. There is a balance between acknowledging feelings and understanding feelings and still evaluating facts, because feelings are information too. They're just a different kind of information. If something feels gross to you, that's information that you need. If something feels like inauthentic to you, if something feels like it doesn't sit well with you, that's information that you need. But that's not invalid, but that's also not facts. So being able to honor both is something that I really see missing right now. And it's just, sorry, I'm like all ADD wiggly today. It's something that I see missing right now, because it's like, there can't be any feelings. No, we have to honor each other's feelings. If somebody tells you, hey, this hurt me, and this is why this hurt me, or those words hurt me, then the response is not, hey, those words shouldn't hurt you. The response is, oh, I don't understand why those words hurt you, but I want to understand why those words hurt you. Because if we don't evaluate culture and language, we're not going to be able to continue to do better. Because if it's just like, whatever, you're a snowflake, meaning somebody who's too fragile, whatever, you're a snowflake is not it. Just being like, words have impact and meaning. And so understanding that there are both facts and feelings. And if we do not address the feelings part, we can never get to the facts part. Right now, a lot of the news media is stuck in the feelings part. as opposed to acknowledging the feelings part and then moving to the facts part, saying, I hear you. I hear what you're feeling. And if I don't understand it, I will ask you so I can understand. But with the way cancel culture is right now, it's hard to have conversations about feelings, because I think the people who are like saying, hey, these words, these actions, these things are hurtful, are afraid that they're going to get met with, you're wrong for them being hurtful, or are so used to feeling like they're going to get told they're wrong for it being hurtful that it goes way over the top of, and if you don't agree with my feelings, fuck you, you're canceled. Because that's the part that's hard. It's these are the feelings I have around this. Can we talk about that? Without getting to, and if you don't agree, fuck you, you're canceled. And that's where we are stuck right now. Because I think a lot of people are just like, well, the facts are the facts. Fuck your feelings. No, we have to get to the feelings first. And then we get to the facts, and then we come together. This is when I talk about media manipulation, and it's not just big media or mainstream media, it's music, it's iPhone commercials that are like people weeping, watching like a grandmother talking to their granddaughter over FaceTime, and you're like, I need a new phone. It's like, fuck, stop manipulating my feelings. I don't want to cry during commercials. It's Amy Grant with the sad dogs and the from the arms of an angel. I'm like, I'm sitting on my couch crying. I feel like I need to donate money somewhere. I can't get myself together. Yikes. Like the emotional manipulation is hard. And that's when we talk about some of these topics today, emotional manipulation is a big part of what we're talking about today with both James Charles and David Dobrik, because emotional manipulation is a big part of both of those stories. So for me, when we talk about law is reason free from passion, quote from Legally Blonde, I know it's also Aristotle. I know it's also Aristotle, but Legally Blonde. The meaning of the law is reason free from passion doesn't mean there can't be passion in advocating what the law should be. But once we get to what the law is, once the law is written, evaluating the law to a set of facts does not bring in passion, meaning it doesn't bring in your personal feelings. Not that it doesn't bring in advocacy, not that it doesn't engender a passionate feeling of like right and wrong and morality. It's just saying there has to be a setting aside of the individual personal feelings from evaluating the law and the facts together, because essentially legal reasoning is saying the law says this, that means this. The law is this, that means this. And if the law is that and that means this, these facts connect with this in this way. So we have to determine what the law is and then what that actually means. And in the practice of law, there's jury instructions. The law says, the taking of personal property by force is a robbery. But then the jury instructions say, this is what personal property is. This is what force is. This is what this is. And it outlines what that means. Law, what it means, how the facts apply to it. I had a mentor at the DA's office who, when he passed from cancer, was one of the things that shook me in my career and early in my career. And he was one of our trainers. And then I got to work with him one-on-one with another DA who I really enjoyed. And he was our supervising DA, and the two of us were the trial deputies. And we had a prickly judge, but she and I worked so well together. And he was such a good teacher that I enjoyed so much getting to work with him and learn from him. And one of the things he always reminded us when we talked about criminal law is like, look, you want to go into your closing argument like something you've seen on TV. And at the time, look, a lot of us were heavily influenced by Ally McBeal and Law and Order and Elle Woods. So there's all these TV perceptions of what a lawyer is in your head, and these TV perceptions of what a trial lawyer is in your head, and a TV perception of what a prosecutor is in your head, because there's all these imagery that you need to understand, because that's what a jury thinks a lawyer is too. And at some point you try to play that role for them, or at least I did. I don't know if everybody does. Experiences are so individual. But he would always remind us, look, try not to do the most. He didn't use those words, but try not to do the most in closing. Because a jury doesn't want to be manipulated. They want to be educated. They want you to teach them. And what you need to teach them is what the crime is. And you need to talk about what the crime is, and talk about what the crime is again, and talk about the crime, and the defendant's connection to the crime. So this is what it is. These are what the facts are. This is what the situation is. This is what the witnesses said. This is what the evidence shows. And this is why we know it's that person. The crime. Because juries don't want to be manipulated. So when I break down information, I always look at what are the facts. Like for me, it's the facts. And where are my feelings? Because if I don't know what my feelings are, they could spew out fucking everywhere, and that's not good either. So knowing what my feelings are, I can go, oh, I'm really fired up about this. But then when we talk, because I'm doing commentary, I can say, I'm really fired up about this, and this is why. Or I feel like this doesn't sit well with me. Like the morality of this doesn't sit well with me, but the law of this is over here, and I can explain the difference. When you don't know yourself, it's hard to differentiate those. So the law is reason free from passion means whether you fucking love something or fucking hate something, the law should be applied the same way. So when we talk about James Charles, whether you're a stan or whether you're a hater, the law breaks down the same way. And that is really, the law is reason free from passion, but it doesn't mean there is no passion. It means you have to address your passion first and go, oh, that's how I feel about this. That goes over here. And if you've seen my TED Talk, or if you've seen me talk about myself, you will see me talk about like my little lawyer box. Because once you get used to putting your feelings aside in a box, it becomes a very easy coping mechanism to keep going to and to keep gravitating towards. Putting your feelings in a box and then letting them come back out is a much harder process, but it's work that we all can do. It's work that we can say, oh, when I saw the story breaking about James Charles, how did I feel about it? Like, what was my gut reaction? And your gut reaction's not wrong. It's just information. Like, how did I respond when I started seeing the Snapchat coming out in the James Charles situation of a 16-year-old saying he had done some things? And I'm not to that topic yet. Don't timestamp me yet. I'm still ranting about law. But what was the response? Was it cancel that motherfucker? Was it somebody's clout chasing? Was it Trisha Paytas is right? Was it Toddy Westbrook is right? Was it James is getting played? Was it James is an idiot? What was the gut response? Those are the feelings. The feelings are, oh, this is how I feel about it. Interesting. Like, how can anyone still support this? When is this person going to prison? Like, these are the things I'm seeing online, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Thinking like a lawyer. I wanted to break it down and make it easy, because this is where I'm at. Thinking like a lawyer. How do I feel about the thing I'm looking at? And this is how do I feel about this tweet? Because this tweet might not be true, but how do I feel about it? Fuck you. I hate that tweet. I'm going to retweet that. Look, you motherfucker. Those are feelings. It doesn't mean they're right or wrong. They're just information that you hate that thing. Okay. Do you need to retweet it? That's the next step of the evaluation. Is that helpful? Maybe not. Or maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it's like, no, I fucking hate that. Something needs to be said. Okay. But when we act out of feelings and don't always run it through our brain, sometimes we do things that we wish we hadn't done. And on Twitter, they stay around. So for me, it's always, how am I feeling? What do I want to say? Is it helpful? Is my analysis, is it helpful? Is it helpful for me to share this? Is it helpful for my community to understand this? Or do I just want to vent my feelings all over the fucking place? And if I do want to vent my feelings all over the fucking place, that's okay too. I just need to know that that's what I'm choosing. Like, sometimes you wake up and you just choose it. You're like, no, y'all are going to know how I fucking feel about this shit right here. Okay. Sometimes I just vent that shit to the people in my life. and don't have to vent it on social media. As long as you're making the conscious choice. I'm not telling you one's right or wrong. Just know if you're venting feelings, that you're venting feelings. I choose not to argue about feelings on Twitter because nobody's feelings are wrong. They're just their feelings. I might think that the thing they're basing their feelings off of is wrong. The facts underlying the feelings might not be accurate, but the feelings are the feelings. So, how do we feel about the thing? What is the thing even? What are we looking at? What are the facts? Like, actually, what are the facts? Headlines aren't facts. Headlines aren't facts. Headlines aren't facts. They're clickbait. They're meant to get you to go, ooh, fuck that shit. Or, ooh, I love that. Feelings aren't facts. Headlines aren't facts. My camera keeps moving. I don't know why it does that. I need to get a new ball head. Either way, headlines aren't facts. Headlines are clickbait. How do I feel? What are the facts? What don't we know? What don't we know? Hey, what other information might I want about this situation? And then that's what sits in the back of my head. Oh, okay, I still don't know this, this, and this. Interesting. Okay, those are the things I don't know. Cool. Now I know. That's what I'm going to be looking for. And that's what I go on the hunt for. That's what I go on the hunt for. What do I not know? What are the potential issues? Oh, well, it could be this and it could be this. Interesting. It could be perceived this way. It could be perceived that way. Interesting. Then what is the law? Now, if I'm analyzing, good use of English, Emily, if I'm going into an analysis about law, I will look at the law first, then I will look at the things, and then I will come back to the law. If I'm looking at a news story and if I'm looking at a tweet, this is the process I go through. How do I feel about the thing? What are the facts we know? What don't we know? What are the issues? And then if it's a legal thing, what's the law? Then it's debating the law on both sides. The law could go like this. The law could go like this. These facts could play out this way. These facts could play out that way. Legal reasoning is nuanced thinking with attention to detail. And lawyers, look, when I would go into a closing argument of a case, I have been thinking about those facts sometimes for 2 or 3 years. I have been thinking about that case generally nonstop for at least 3 or 4 months. Not always, because there were times in misdemeanors when they're like, hey, there's a jury. We don't have a DA. Could you just go do this? And you're like, what happened? Okay, I'll read real quick. And then you go into court. But a lot of the time, you evaluate the law process over time. And my colleagues look at cases and go, okay, this is it. Okay, this is it. Okay, this is it. And you evaluate and evaluate and evaluate. So you have time to come back around to it. You think about it, you think about it again. So what do I feel about the thing that I'm looking at? What are the facts that we know? What don't we know? What are the potential issues? What is the law? And then you start to look at both sides of the thing. And then go, ooh, do I like one side better? Do I think one side has a better case? What is it? What is it? The feeling part, though, for a lot of what we're dealing with in the media, is like, how do I feel about it? And sometimes I look at, and how are they portraying it? How are they trying to make me feel about it? And that's something when I look at media, I'm like, how am I feeling? How are they trying to make me feel? I see you. And then I look at the facts. Like, but what are the actual facts? Because it's hard because so much stuff has spin right now because you're trying to grab that attention, trying to grab that clickbait, trying to grab that coin, really. So I'm always fascinated about what somebody else is trying to make me. How are you trying to make me feel? And it's really fun to watch it play out on social media. All right. So today, James Charles, then David Dobrik, then Lady Gaga, then all the questions, I am sure. I am going to try to not rant as long. I've been talking for almost a half an hour. We're going to try to go through this more quickly. Let's talk about James Charles. All right, WTF is up with James Charles. Quick fact scenario. A TikToker came out and made some allegations about James Charles. Now, I'm not going to say all of these are allegations because when it comes to the pictures, there were pictures. And James Charles has made some statements. So we're going to talk about the statements he has made. I think it's also important for me to tell you why I'm covering this. Normally on this channel, I should have done this before I got to here. Either way, normally on this channel, we talk about filed lawsuits and we talk about things that have already gone into the court process. But sometimes when things are legally heavy, we do talk about stories in the media that haven't gone through the court process yet because accurate information is so fucking helpful. And, defamation's bad. And I talked about these types of topics when it came to, the woman who was releasing her own photos on OnlyFans. I had feelings about that. Gabby DiMartino. And we talked about that story and the law surrounding it. And I'm seeing so many channels and channels I really like covering this from a place of my feeling is this. And I get it. Like my feelings are that James Charles should be in jail, which is what a lot of channels are saying. I'm not telling you those are my feelings. I'm seeing channels saying he should be in prison. He should be behind bars. When is enough enough? I'm seeing a lot of feelings. I wanted to talk about facts and law. Every commentary channel that I follow, and even the ones I don't, are talking about James Charles. If you want to see the tweets and the photos and the re-uploaded TikTok videos and all of that, find your favorite commentary channel. Everyone has covered it. Like Rich Lux has covered it. Keemstar's covered it. Def Noodles has covered it. Peter Mon's covered it. Phil DeFranco's covered it. I'm sure that Truth Sleuth has covered it. I know Drama and Opinions has covered some of it. T-Spill, literally everybody. So 16-year-old TikToker came forward and said that James sent him, we'll go with sexually suggestive images, though I don't think there were actual genitalia images, that James then came out and said the minor lied about his age. The minor told me he was 18. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying it's, there's reasons for everything. The internet is basically saying James should go to jail. James is a predator. James is a groomer. Or the minor is clout chasing. The minor is doing this. The minor lied to James. James is essentially being entrapped. That's not what entrapment is, but okay. So those are kind of what I'm seeing on the internet on both sides of the thing. On Twitter, and I'm just going to pull up what James said on Twitter because his own statements about the thing are very informative to us. And the re-uploads of what the minor said are out there. We're going with the minor. The minor received photos. The minor had photos solicited from him but did not send them. That's where we're at. So let's get into what was said and just pull it up. So James tweeted out, "Good morning," like nothing had fucking happened. I'm going to get to his not really apology explanation situation in a minute. Minister for Close the Airports on Twitter said, "I don't think you can notes app your way out of this, James," which, by the way, fair point. James said, "I'm not trying to get out of anything, no matter what happened." Keep that in mind. It was unacceptable. Mm-hmm. Embarrassing. Mm-hmm. And I should have taken the extra steps to research the person I was talking to. There is no excuse. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. This is on me. To me, that is James saying the things that he did are the things that he did. He just thought the situation was different. The thing with law when it comes to age is that you not knowing isn't a thing. I was really hoping to get just back to James's Twitter to show you the other tweet. That's what I was hoping to do. No, I don't follow James on Twitter. I just pull it up when shit goes down. This is his statement with his trigger warning. There's a video going around about me on TikTok and Twitter of a guy calling me a groomer, and I want to address it right away. The accusation that I have groomed this person is completely false. We're going to talk about grooming in a second and what it is, because I think it's helpful information. Last week, I came across someone on my Instagram Explore page, saw he followed me. By the way, James is saying this went down within a week. Saw he followed me, added him on Snapchat. I didn't even know people were still on Snapchat until all this happened because I'm old as fuck. The next morning, I woke up to several snaps from this person being excited. I added him back. Well, yeah, James, you're a major fucking celebrity in the internet space. So of course they'd be excited that you added him back. There's still times when people that I message with like respond and I'm like, thanks, friend. This is not on the minor, by the way, James. This is with great power comes great responsibility. For better or for worse, you're a celebrity. You wanted to be a celebrity. The responsibility is on you. You know, the check marks need to come with a rule book, but they don't. Maybe they should. I'm going to start advocating. Bring a rule book with the fucking check mark. You don't get a check mark till you get a rule book on how not to, use your clout for nefarious shit. But we're talking about David Dobrik in a minute. So, being excited, I added him back saying he loved me. And again, that could be, oh my God, I'm a fan. Loves you. Not like, oh my God, I have romantic love for you. We know the difference. Let's not pretend we don't. And also lewd photos of himself in the shower. Again, if he's under 18, James, you can't have those. And it's your bad, not the kid's bad for sending them. I asked how old he was right away. He told me he was 18. That's not what the minor says. So I started flirting back in the excitement of meeting someone I thought could be potentially great. We'll talk about why James is using Snapchat as his own personal dating service later, because this keeps coming up for him. It is now clear based on the video he uploaded, he was taking photos of me with another device. You should be aware that that's probably going to happen if you're sending people body part pictures. James, you're a celebrity. And he had an ulterior motive from the beginning. Okay. Irrelevant to the law, but this is James's perception of how things are going down, insinuating that he's a victim. Later in the day, he said a few things that made me question the validity of his original age answer. And when I asked him to confirm his age again, he admitted he was 16. I told him I was really uncomfortable and apologized for flirting, but he insisted we continue talking, saying it could be our little secret, that he's a fan of mine and would never tell anyone. That's, by the way, not what the minor says. I told him I wasn't okay with this. He started getting upset. At that point, I unfriended him. We haven't spoken since. I'm not a victim, though you said that you were up above, but okay. I'm not victim blaming or victimizing myself either, simply sharing what happened. No, you're sharing your perception of what happened, but that's okay. Sorry. And what happened was not okay. Correct. You were sharing photos with a minor. After false allegations like this in the past, I would never knowingly engage with anyone underage and put my life on the line for a few Snapchats. Or you think that you can get away with it because you're a fucking celebrity, one of the two. Because of situations like this, instead of taking someone's word for it, I will now ask for ID or passport. That should have already happened. These allegations have come up before, but let's talk about the law. So based on what James said, that there's no excuse, I'm taking it to mean, and based on this too, James doesn't deny sending the photos. I'm taking those facts to mean the photos are not fake. The photos are actually James, and James sent explicit-ish, no genitalia because it matters for legal, sent explicit-ish photos to a minor, solicited photos from a minor, and may or may not have received photos from a minor. The minor has not been clear about whether he sent photos. If photos of the minor were sent to James that are explicit, then that is clearly a crime. That part, clearly a crime. That part, clearly a crime. That part's easy. We're not going to talk about the easy stuff. We're going to talk about the hard stuff. If a minor, this is why minors sexting becomes such a huge thing. If minors send photos, it can be CP. I feel, why am I doing this? I don't know. If minors send photos, explicit photos, it can be CP, and the receiver can get in trouble. The sender, if they're the minor, generally does not get in the same kind of trouble, but if somebody redistributes them, even if they're a minor, they can. It's a whole thing. We're not talking about the minor sending photos. If the minor sent photos, crime. If JC received those, can be a crime. If he kept them on his phone, can be a crime. That's in its own category. That's easier to parse. Just James sending non-genitalia photos to the minor. What is that? Is that a crime? James talking to the minor. What is that? Is that a crime? And what do we mean about grooming? Grooming is something that you can see in a lot of different aspects. If you look at something like the US gymnasts who were abused by their trainer and coach, you will see a pattern of grooming. There was a really good podcast, I think it's called Believed. I'm going to make a note to pull it up and attach it, that talks about what that process is like. And that is absolutely a process of grooming. It is very hard to listen to. It is sad. It is, look, I grew up being an athlete. Not being able to trust the people that are supposed to help you as an athlete is horrifyingly undermining and abusive. So that podcast talks to gymnasts who were involved and talks to their parents. So grooming can occur in a lot of ways, but what grooming really is this behavior of using a position of trust to get somebody to override their instincts. It's a form of manipulation. It entices people to do something they might not otherwise do. And it can be grooming to traffic someone. It can be grooming in a narcissistic relationship to put somebody over, in a position where they'll do things they wouldn't otherwise do. It can happen quickly. It can happen over time. It can happen over the internet. It can happen in person. It can be, somebody in a position of power who rubs the shoulder on occasion, and then there's a lower shoulder rub, and then it's a 2 shoulder rub, and then it's, oh, let's go get a drink. This building of a fake trust, and an abuse generally of that position of trust. One of the big things with grooming is making the person being groomed or the child being groomed, because this happens to adults. This happens to elders, by the way, in the elder abuse spectrum, but that's a whole different tangent. But it's making the person feel special and feeling like they deserve the special attention that they're getting. And that's where we see, people in a position of power. A celebrity, an internet celebrity, is in a position of power, making someone feel special. And you see that in both James's statements and in the minor's statements, saying, I was thrilled that he friended me back. Right. Because a position of power, there's a dynamic there. And now by adding the person back on Snapchat, you're making them feel special. You're making them feel like they get this special attention that they want to still have. So you can push their boundaries by giving them special attention, by making them feel safe with you. But that's all done with a purpose of exploiting and manipulating that position of trust. So that's what grooming is. Did that happen in this case? We don't have all the facts. We have 2 sides of the story. But that making someone feel special and making someone feel like they want to do something for you and they want to stay kind of in your sphere can push their boundaries. Those are grooming behaviors. There is also predatory grooming when people do that to multiple other people. In this case, there are allegations of that this is a way of behaving. And you see that also in different types of relationships and different type of power dynamics. You can see this in the workplace. Look at the entire Me Too movement. It's the creating an environment of, oh, but this is how it's done. This is okay. You're so special. You're so pretty. So when you look at Me Too, you can see it through the lens of grooming too, and see, oh, this is how people's personal boundaries were overridden. And it's overriding that natural response of, this doesn't feel right. But this person treats me like I'm special, so I should trust them because they make it feel right. And that's where we see the stuff with Larry Nassar too. So it's, my own instincts are like, run away, run away, run away. But the groomers made me feel safe. And the groomers made me feel like, oh, but I should just trust you. You know more. And I want to stay in your sphere. So I'm going to override my natural gut response to get away and lean in because I like that you're making me feel special, even if some of the things don't make me feel special. So that's where that is. Is grooming specifically illegal? No. No. Grooming is the behavior that leads up to the actions that can then become illegal. Grooming is the pattern to get people to a place where they will override their own instincts. Now, what do we know that James did? Assuming California. What do we know James did? We know he sent suggestive photos, and they were up on Snapchat, and a lot of the drama channels have them if you want to see them. He sent suggestive photos that did not have genitalia. And in that, sending suggestive texts to a minor in California maybe could fall into the misdemeanor annoying a child category. Maybe. Annoying a child in California is in the 647 realm of sex crimes, but it can still require sex offender registration. So that is a big deal, but it's a misdemeanor. Nobody's going to jail, right? Maybe we'll be on probation. Maybe we'll have some limitations. The sex offender registration becomes the big deal there. Now, people are advocating for changes to the laws with regard to things like sexting and with regard to sexting with minors, but not every state, most in fact, don't have sexting laws. Now, we also have to look at the federal laws. So people are going to ask, why isn't this, lewd acts with a child? Why isn't this those types of things? Those all require touching. The internet is allowing for things to play out that don't fit within the way the crimes are actually written. So in this, when I was like, you've seen it? Like, what is the crime? What is the crime? What is the crime? Like, what are the facts? And what is the crime? The facts that we have are someone 21 years old that lives in California, someone 16 years old, unknown location, and I didn't go digging for it because I don't want to know. And Snapchat messages of a somewhat sexual nature and photos that don't involve genitalia and potentially soliciting photos. What was very interesting to me in this is when the minor was talking about the way photos were being solicited, the way photos were being solicited were vague enough to where a police officer or prosecutor would look at it and go, that's going to be tough. Because unless, and we have not seen this could exist. We have not seen it from what's been shared. The photos were, I want to see you flex, or the requests were, I want to see you flex. I want to see you look sexy. I want to see your body hair. But is that requesting a particular body part? It's a lot easier if somebody says, send me a picture of your genitalia. That becomes much like, send me that dick. That becomes a much easier case for a prosecutor to go, oh, you're soliciting sexually explicit images of a minor. Cool. Crime. Easy to spot. But show me your body hair and flex. A jury's going to go, you want me to beyond a reasonable doubt some body hair? No. And a prosecutor is going to go, it could go both ways. Like it's dancing around it. And the fact that it's dancing around it is hard for me, because the fact that there's dancing around it, I'm like, what's the intent there? Are we choosing to dance around it so we don't get in trouble? Is that what's happening? Or is it really that that's what you want to see? The dancing around it is hard for me. Also, chat, when I was not soliciting pictures. It was in context. Please don't send me those pictures. Don't. I don't ever want those pictures. But I've also My husband and I met before we had cell phones. Like, this is not a world I've had to navigate. I'm trying to navigate this world for a kid my oldest is 13. Like, I'm trying to learn to navigate this world because I have a kid that's in this world. And I'm trying to figure out how to explain to him, trust your gut, that it's hard to, you have to question first and then trust. And that's tough. It's tough. So JC being vague with the language is very, very interesting to me because it makes these things hard to prosecute criminally. That doesn't mean there can't be civil liability. Civil liability is like the Toddy Westbrook case. Civil liability is like the whichever TikTok house is getting sued. And with all of this going down, we're going to have to talk about that lawsuit, and we'll do that another day. Because with all of this happening, it's a good example of how these things might not play out in criminal law, but how they will play out in civil law. So this behavior with James, first of all, none of it's a felony. So none of it goes to prison. You only go to prison for felonies. None of this is a felony. Most of this doesn't carry jail time. And that's the way that the laws are written, which is why we need to have the conversation, because I want to know what you're feeling in the chat. Does that make you want to barf? Does that make you angry? Does that make you go, what in the ever-loving world is happening where all of this behavior that feels very wrong to me is not actually easily prosecuted? Like, why is this not go to jail, do not pass, go? Why is that not the case? Why is that not the case? And this is breaking down the California laws. Let me know how you're feeling about that. And then we're going to talk about the federal laws, because here's the thing. I am not sure where the minor lives. The minor could live in California. The minor could not live in California. So if the minor lives elsewhere, the laws elsewhere can also apply, but the federal law can also apply. And there's a few that might come into play here. But look, trying to get a federal prosecutor to take up a case of a few photos that don't involve that dick is going to be very hard. Very, very difficult. I need to say difficult whenever I'm talking about dick. I need to stop saying hard, because I am not making fun. And I will shift into making fun because sometimes these conversations are uncomfortable, and I will shift in. But that does not help anyone who has been groomed, anyone who has had unwanted sexual advances, photos, assaults, because this behavior feels assaultive when you get things that you don't want. And the thing with grooming is it makes behavior that's assaultive feel like you shouldn't feel bad about it. So for the dude, it's like, this is my extrapolation surrounding the circumstance. For the 16-year-old, it's like, this influencer I really like is paying me this special attention. And I don't like the photos that he's sending me, but I do like the attention that I'm getting. And now I'm deeply conflicted, and I feel shame because I'm conflicted. So I don't want to say anything because I like the attention. And maybe I brought this on myself because I liked the attention, and I did add him on Snapchat, but I just wanted to have a conversation because I really like this influencer and I thought that would be super cool. But now I feel really yucky, and I don't want these pictures, and I don't want to send him pictures, and I feel disgusted, but I also feel ashamed because maybe I caused this. And that is what victims go through. And that's why it's so hard to parse these things out, because victims feel shame. And perpetrators and predators use shame to keep people quiet. This 16-year-old came forward and said, I feel gross. And what I've seen, he's getting it back of, you're a clout chaser, you're a this, you're a that. He's getting all of the lashing out. You guys get to see it play out in real time, the thoughts that jurors sometimes have in their heads. And this happens to sexual assault, young sexual assault victims too. Especially, most sexual assault is perpetrated by somebody in a position of trust, normally not strangers. And that's where the grooming comes in, is finding that position of trust and creating that position of trust. But with younger victims, we're just wandering directly into demonetized land because this is so important. With younger victims, and this is something I worked with in juvenile when it was kids perpetrating things against kids, which is so fucking dark. We're not going to get into explicit, but for kids, sometimes it's like, but they didn't hurt me. So with assault, it's really easy to know you've been assaulted when somebody fucking punches you in the face, throws a glass at you, shoots you, stabs you, drags you downstairs. Like there are types of assault that it's very clear you've been assaulted. But then there's other assault where it's like, but I'm not hurt. So I'm confused because it's not hurting me. And so it's very interesting when you get into that realm of it's harder to tell. Like it's pretty easy to know when you've been assaulted physically. You feel it. But when it comes to the SA stuff, the feelings are different and they're conflicted and then they're wrapped in shame. And that's why it's so hard to get to the victims. And that's why it's so hard to have people come forward because they don't know how to unwind the shame around the conversation. And I really hope that doing that here helps the conversation, because I'm not in a court of criminal law. I can just believe what the victim says and say, we're trusting what they say, but we're also looking for more evidence. And in this case, there's photos and there's photos of Snapchat messages. And then the person who sent the messages said, well, I didn't not send them. I thought the circumstance was different. Okay. You thought the circumstance was different, but you did it. So that's why it's easy to talk about in this case. So let's talk about the federal laws. There are a few federal laws that go into this, but they're still not great. It's easier if you're soliciting images from a minor and they send them. It's easier criminally if you're soliciting specific images. Oh, show it to me. Much easier. Things that are vague are much harder to prosecute because it's harder to prove the intent. Because how do you, as a juror that has to know beyond a reasonable doubt, you get somebody on the stand who's like, I asked for a picture of body hair. My intent was just to see that chest hair sprinkling. I like chest hair. The intent was for a non-sexual thing. So that you have. So there's that. Federal laws. I am pulling up the exact language so that I don't get it wrong, because federal, I didn't prosecute in federal. I was a law clerk in federal only, and I don't want to get it wrong because I don't know it as well. So federal law prohibits producing obscene material to distribute. So you could say maybe James's own photos fall into that category, but not really, because a consenting adult can send another consenting adult, because you're not selling it and you're not really distributing it. So maybe not. You cannot have obscenity that involves minors, but that's of minors. But under Section 1470 of Title 18 of the U.S. Code, it prohibits any individual from knowingly transferring or attempting to transfer obscene material using the U.S. mail or any means or facility of interstate or foreign commerce to a minor under 16 years of age. Okay, well, if this kid is 16, that doesn't apply because it's under 16. That doesn't mean 16. That means under 16. So that's not going to work. And then trying to say that Snapchat is essentially the mail becomes, do you see where the laws are struggling? Because who the fuck is sending this shit through the mail? They're sending it through Snapchat, not the mail. But U.S. Code 1466A of Title 18 makes it illegal for any person to... Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm trying to find the right one. Here it is. There are laws to protect children from obscene and harmful material on the internet. These are under the Communications Decency Act of 1996. 1996. Nobody writing the laws in 1996 could conceive of a Snapchat. No one knew. I was around in 96. As an elder of the tribe, I can tell you that in 1996, no one could presume what a Snapchat was going to be, which is why these laws need to be updated. But in the Communications Decency Act, it's illegal for an individual to knowingly use an interactive computer service to display obscenity in a manner that makes it available to a minor less than 18 years of age. So I think they're sending it directly to someone under 18. I think that's the one. That's the one. Use an interactive computer service to display obscenity. I think that's the one. But then what's obscenity? And then the intent behind it. And I think with the photos that we've seen and with the context of the photos and the, just showing you I'm showering, I'm sexy, blah, 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 then I think we could maybe get into it. But could we really get to a criminal prosecution on this? It would be very hard. But other people have come forward. We will see. If there are more, it becomes easier to prosecute. The fact that a 16-year-old had the self-possession to stand up and say this happened, it feels gross. I'm calling it out that it's gross. Knowing that they were going to get called a clout chaser on the internet, which is also gross, is hopefully opening the door for this kind of influencer Me Too. Can we just call it influencer Me Too? Where people are coming forward saying the influencers have done this to me too. And it's not okay. Using your platform to prey on your audience is not okay. It's morally reprehensible, in my opinion, and in some places illegal, but the laws need to catch up. And maybe, just maybe, that's what this whole circumstance will bring us. It will bring us the laws catching the fuck up, going, oh, we can't have this. This isn't gonna work. This seems illegal, but the laws aren't letting us prosecute it. We've talked about this in other cases. This feels like it should be more illegal, and yet it doesn't fit with the laws that we have. And this is what gets back to, hey, this is where politics matter. Because I don't care what side of the aisle you are, and if you are a purple person, you have to just kind of pick who's in your area and be like, look, I don't care what your political views are. Can we all agree that we like protecting children? And that we want adults to have their sexy time to themselves, but we want minors to be protected from it. Can we just all agree? I don't think this is not a political issue. This is an internet safety issue. The only reason it becomes, rant. The only reason it becomes a political issue is because of how much fucking money social media platforms spend on the politicians that they bought to protect their bottom line, not to protect the people using their social media platforms. I said what I said. I said what I said. That's why it's political. It's political because of the fucking money. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be political to protect children on social media from being preyed on. Children from 18 to 13 should be able to interact with their friends, especially during COVID. You should be able to get on to Roblox and chat with your friends and play a game and not have to worry about somebody preying on you or asking for nudes or wanting to see your body hair. You should be able to look up to influencers without worrying that they're going to turn around, get into your DMs and be disgusting. And the platforms have to do something about it. But the reason the politicians won't do anything about it is because they will lose the money from the platforms. Look at how much Facebook spends in political spending. Look at how much Twitter spends in political spending. Look at how much Google spends in political spending. Look at what they spend. Follow the fucking money. The money goes from the tech bros to the politicians, not just on one side of the aisle. Not just on one side of the aisle. This is not about one political party or another. This is about politicians and media giants versus us. We get to decide. Politicians are supposed to work for and represent us, not social media, multinational conglomerates, us, our kids. And that's what they'll tell you when they campaign. They will tell you that they want to protect you. They will tell you that they want to protect your kid. But guess what? You don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to get them elected. So when they get to the legislature, your interests aren't the first interest on their mind. And they have to be, and they should be. And it's gross that they're not, but that's because of the fucking money. Follow it. Follow the money. We've gone from James Charles to social media to follow the money. Rant slightly over because now we're going to talk about David Dobrik. And we're going to continue to talk about influencers using their influence to do gross shit. So let's talk about David Dobrik. What did David Dobrik do? What didn't David Dobrik do? If you don't know who David Dobrik is, I can't help you. Watch the H3H3 podcast. The H3H3 podcast has been in on David Dobrik. Again, when I talk about a podcast, I'm talking about their content. I'm not co-signing everything they've ever done in the entire world. Trisha Paytas has done a lot of really shady shit that I don't agree with. But also, she's not wrong when it comes to Jason Nash, David Dobrik, and their friend Seth. So what happened? If you want to see all the clips, H3 has pulled them all up. David Dobrik is a vlogger, YouTuber, whatever, who coerced and tricked his friend to make out with Jason Nash. Now, friend seems to be heterosexual. Friend was told he was going to be making out with a female, and the female was going to be wearing a mask. So, hey, it's going to be really funny for the vlog. This is our scene. Oh, you mean using a Hollywood type production to coerce someone into doing something they don't want to do? Hi, Me Too movement. It's been about 3 minutes since we've talked about you. We're going to do this vlog. It's going to be great because, right, David Dobrik's bigger than some movies. We're going to do this vlog. It's going to be this thing, and you're going to be making out, but there's a mask, and it's going to look like you were doing this and that, and it's going to be Alyssa Violet under the mask, and she's young and hot, and you want to make out with her, but she's going to be in a mask, and you're going to make out with her, and it's going to be great, and we're doing a dream sequence. See my vision. Lose your judgment. Be in my vlog. In the mask, it was not Alyssa Violet. It was Jason Nash, who's a man in his 40s. Now, I have no problem with men kissing men. Sure don't. Needs to be consensual. Needs to be consensual. Look, if you haven't seen Consent and Tea, it's fantastic. I will link it. I'm making a note. No, I'm not. Tech Valor's making a note for me. Thank you, Tech Valor. Consent and Tea talks about consent. Again, vlog squads in California, we're going to talk about California consent. California consent is affirmative consent. You know what's consent? Yes. Yes. Do that. We love that. Ooh, that too. You know what's not consent? Silence is not consent. Anything short of yes, do that is not consent. California is an affirmative consent. You have to say yes. And then you have to keep saying yes. It's like I said yes to us kissing, but that doesn't mean that we're like, we can stop. You can withdraw consent. Consent is important. Consent is good. Consent for this, and then consent for that, and then consent for an Adam and Eve sponsorship. Not sponsored, but consent for all the different things. If you haven't watched Consent and Tea, watch it. Oh, thank you. Correction. It wasn't Alyssa Violet. It was Karina. Yes, that. Thank you. Appreciate it. Girl in Vlog Squad. I don't know these people. I do not follow the Vlog Squad. I follow the H3 podcast, so I appreciate it. I'm not as familiar with the players when it comes to the Vlog Squad. So consent. Consent and Tea has got to be one of the greatest things because it takes the weirdness out of a conversation about consent, but it is consent. Thank you. Consent has to be, and once again, we'll see if it's a full rant. Once again, with consent, you can consent to kissing someone. You can consent. Like, I don't know what the base equivalents are anymore. It used to be like, oh, first base was this, and second base was that, and third base was this, and home plate was other stuff. I don't know what the bases are. I don't have analogies for these things. I have been with my husband for over 20 years. There is a knowledge. But in healthy, positive relationships, you can consent to one thing and then say, but this one thing doesn't necessarily lead to consent to that thing. You consent along the way. Also, there's consent in marriages. That's a thing. It's illegal. If a spouse doesn't consent, just because you're married doesn't mean you consent. Just because it's your boyfriend or girlfriend doesn't mean you consent. Just because you're dating someone doesn't mean you consent to all the things. You can say no. You can say yes and then say no. Watch Consent and Tea. We're not doing a whole lesson on consent. I've already been talking for over an hour. David Dobrik. Friend consents to kissing girl who's going to be in mask. But then making out with person in mask, girl comes up, They remove mask. It's the man in the mask. It's Jason Nash, and the girl's sitting there. And the gentleman who was tricked into consenting to something he didn't consent to was made fun of and mocked. It was a prank. However, you can't prank with consent. Can't prank with consent. Did not consent to the person in the mask. Consented to this other person. Therefore, no consent. But is it illegal? What's the crime? What's the crime? Here's the thing. What happened is horrible to do to a person. You don't trick a person into doing anything. And when it comes to tricking someone in a sexual way, this could happen in lots of different ways. Consent by trick is not consent. But for it to be actually a criminally actionable sexual assault, there has to be sexual intent. So is the intent sexual, or was the intent to humiliate? I think the argument becomes the intent was to trick. The intent was not sexual. So if there's no mens rea, if there's no intent, then is it actually an essay? Yeah, on that one, I have to go with no. I have to go with no. That doesn't mean it's not an assault. An assault is an unwanted touching. That was an unwanted touching. So is it just a straight up assault? Probably. Much easier to do the legal analysis on just an assault, but still probably a misdemeanor assault at that, which means, again, in California, no jail time at all. No jail time at all. So is David Dobrik and Jason Nash going to jail over this? No. No, it's not. But is there a civil case? The civil case would be intentional infliction of emotional distress. And that would be a stronger case. So somebody's asking, what if the person in the mask had been a woman? If it had been a different woman, same thing. Because didn't consent to that person. So the gender of the person in the mask, for me, is not the analysis. That might have been Dobrik's intention to humiliate. But for me, it is the person in the mask the person that consent was given to? No. But the civil case for David Dobrik is much stronger. Was this an intentional infliction of emotional distress, which we talked about with the Toddy Westbrook without a crystal ball case? Because there are IIED and NIED charges there. Yes. So IIED, much, much stronger. Because what is this if not an intentional infliction of emotional distress? They did this to humiliate him. They did this to mock him. And then they put it all over social media. That's what happened. So civil in that case is what I see stronger. I don't see that as anything other than a misdemeanor assault. And what would happen with a misdemeanor assault in this? Not much. People are asking, what if the roles were reversed? I'm not sure what you mean by if the roles were reversed, but I will get to questions at the end. I think you mean if a woman had consented to giving the kiss, it's the same thing. So this scenario, the genders for me are irrelevant. The fact pattern is person A consented to kissing person B. Through trick, they kissed person C. The gender of those people is irrelevant to me. That is still an assault because you didn't consent to that interaction with that person. That becomes an unwanted touching. But the intent was to trick. So that is really where we are. So that is the David Dobrik stuff. And again, I'm going to get to questions at the end. I want to talk about the Lady Gaga situation real quick because we're playing What's the Crime today. I mean, it's not really a game because we are talking about individuals who have had events happen to them that really are awful and traumatic and stressful. So like, What's the Crime feels like a game, but it's not a game because trauma is not tea and this is not tea. This is me being frustrated that I'm seeing people saying very large things. Like, I feel like, and this is what a lot of the drama community is, I feel like James Charles should go to prison. Okay, I understand the feeling, but the law's not going to allow that to happen. So let's talk about why the feeling is this should be illegal. The law is, it's going to be real tough to get there. And how do we fix that disconnect? How do we fix the disconnect between shit sure seems like it's bad, why can't anyone go to jail? We got to fix that conversation, which is why we have these conversations here. Let's talk about Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga's dogs were stolen from her dog walker, and that is the mildest way to say it. What happened, I'm going to pull up what LAPD tweeted about it because LAPD is on Twitter. Like, let's go to the tweets, Bob. Okay, let's go to the tweets. LAPD on Twitter breaks down the situation really well. Violent street robbery. On February 24th at approximately 9:20 p.m., the victim was walking 3 French bulldogs in the area of Sierra Bonita and Sunset, Los Angeles. The suspects approached the victim in a white Nissan Altima. 2 suspects exited the vehicle and demanded the victim turn over the dogs at gunpoint. The victim struggled with the suspects and was shot once. The victim is recovering. He's also made a statement. The suspects took 2 of the 3 dogs and fled the scene. Suspect 1 is described as a male black, 20 to 25 years old, blonde dreadlocks, wearing a black hoodie, armed with a semi-automatic handgun. Suspect 2 is described as a male black, 20 to 25 years of age, wearing dark clothing. The owner of the stolen dogs was identified to be the celebrity known as Lady Gaga. The victim is in stable condition. The investigation is ongoing. Anyone call. Lady Gaga offered a $500,000 reward for return of the dogs. We will talk about that in a minute. The dog walker is recovering. No one's been taken into custody. I don't know if they've identified any suspects to this crime. This is what happened. The dog walker spoke out, and I'm going to pull up that article. The dog walker spoke out on Instagram and said, let's see, I'm still recovering from a very close call with death and have kept myself, for the most part, I am human, from the growing media story. I will write and say more later, but the gratitude and the love and support I feel from all around the planet is immense and intense. Let me try to pull this up more. I feel your healing support. Thank you. I am humbled and grateful that the attention and focus from the police were enough to get Koji and Gustav back safely. And I know they are committed to bringing these criminals and attempted murderers to justice. We're going to talk about that. I am so appreciative of everything you continue to do. To all my friends and family who have cried with me and maybe even laughed at 1 or 2 of my morbid jokes by my side and over a screen, I love you. Thank you. Oh, didn't mean to do that. And then it gets into talking about thank you for the first responders who literally saved my life. It's being the victim of an armed robbery. That has not happened to me, but I've talked to a lot of victims of armed robbery. It sucks, and it definitely shatters your perception of personal security. And getting shot isn't good at all. There have been multiple reports on how many shots were fired. There's been some conflicting evidence. When I look at facts, I'm going with what LAPD said. What LAPD said is this individual was shot once. It doesn't mean more rounds weren't fired. They were shot once. So again, what are the facts? Dog walker, walking dogs, approached by 2 suspects with a semi-automatic handgun, shot once, dogs were taken. French bulldogs are valuable. This has been going on in the UK too. Dog nappings have increased significantly. There is a shortage of pooches due to COVID, and the black market for dogs is very hot right now. So when you have a time where we've got economic distress, we have layoffs, we have closures, it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing an increase in property crimes because yes, this is a robbery, but it was the stealing of property, presumably to resell, because I don't think there's any evidence that anyone knew that these were Lady Gaga's dogs. I think that the people who took the dogs and wanted to resell them saw the media attention and went, fuck, that's not going to go well, and probably dumped the dogs, and that's why they were found and returned. I think that they wanted to get as far away from those dogs as possible due to the media attention. Would the dogs have been returned in a normal circumstance without tremendous media attention? I don't know. You guys can speculate about what you think. So what are the crimes here? Well, there's a 211. A 211 in California is a robbery. A robbery is the, violent taking of property, but also could have been a robbery if the person had been pushed down or punched. Doesn't have to have the shooting element, but robbery with great bodily injury, the shooting, with personal use of a firearm and gun allegations. If I were a DA, that's what I would charge. If I were a DA, I would charge the robbery with great bodily injury, that's extra prison time. With the personal use of a firearm, extra prison time. With gun allegations, also extra prison time. Attempted murder. Okay, attempted murder. So with attempted murder, there is the question of whether the purpose of shooting the individual was to take the dogs and get away, whether it was actually to kill them, whether it was to harm them. So attempted murder is going to depend on the fact situation, which is going to come out more later. But the new district attorney of LA County has new policies. I have not touched on these a lot. I will touch on them, and I've decided that I will touch on them by cases. So when we talk about things like Tory Lanez and when we talk about things like this is in LA, this is under the purview of the LA County district attorney. I can talk about the policies with regard to how it plays out in different fact situations. So the policies of the district attorney right now are that the lowest possible charge is what should be alleged. So if the people who did this are caught and it's like, these are the people that did this, and they're like, yes, we took Lady Gaga's dogs, we're the ones who did it, and they are known, then I think what the district attorney's new policies would require is that this be potentially a misdemeanor grand theft person, potentially a felony grand theft person. But the new edict is for the lowest possible charge that accounts for the behavior. So the lowest possible charge to account for the behavior would be a misdemeanor grand theft. No gun allegations, no charges with regards to the shooting, just the taking of the property. So under the old policies, the way I would roll, I would look at the attempted murder. The shooting really might have been to perpetrate the robbery, which means it's not really an attempted murder. In California, there is no attempted manslaughter. You can't have an attempted second-degree robbery. So it's either you're trying to kill somebody or you're not. And that's where you get things like assault with great bodily injury with weapon allegations, because if you can't prove the intent was to murder, and here the intent may well have been to perpetrate the robbery, like they were struggling so hard, so we shot him to rob, and we don't know the fact scenario, and because we only have what the LAPD has put out, we don't know if there was words exchanged, we don't know if they said, I don't want to shoot you, let go of the dogs, don't make me shoot you, things like that would make it very clear that the shooting was to perpetrate the robbery. So under Emily as a DA, 211 robbery, personal use of a firearm with great bodily injury, gun allegations. Under new DA, possibly a misdemeanor theft. Maybe a felony grand theft of personal property, to wit, dog. So that's what it is. I see you guys asking about the dogs. Would the dogs, if the dogs were not harmed, would animal cruelty be in there for kidnapping the dogs? Nope. The dogs have to be harmed, and there has to be intent to harm the dogs. I think the intent was to sell the dogs. Most things with regard to personal property, the intent is to sell the dogs. So I think animal cruelty is hard to prove anyway. There has to be the things that need to be proven don't seem to be factually specific here, because Lady Gaga said the dogs were returned unharmed. So no, Karate Girl, not under the law. Surely shooting someone is intent to kill. Not always. The way the laws are written are so funny. So there are different types. It can be an assault, Bree Patrick. So hold on. Let me just switch us to questions. Let's just jump into questions. We want to talk questions. So let's just open it up. Questions. Let's answer all your questions. Because again, I feel like what you guys are feeling is, wait a second. What I'm seeing, what seems like the right result, and what you're saying don't all make sense to me together. Correct. I understand the feeling. So let me pull back up Bree Patrick's question because I just had it. Damn it. And I hope I didn't lose it. I'm going to find it in the chat. For those of you asking, yes, Lady Gaga got her dogs back. Lady Gaga did not say that the dogs were injured in any way and what have you. The man was shot in the chest. How is this not assault or attempted murder? So attempted murder requires the specific intent to murder. You can't have an attempted murder. In different jurisdictions, there are different types of murder. First degree murder, second, California does degrees. And you get to like the different types of negligence where the intent is not an intent to kill, the intent is to do something else. Murder requires a specific intent to kill. So if the specific intent was to get the dogs and the shooting was the way that was facilitated, you're not going to meet the mindset of wanting someone to die. You wanted to get the dogs. So when we talk about that, yes, we can still have an assault here, but the robbery trumps the assault. So because they also took property, the robbery carries more time. If they hadn't been able to get the dogs, there would be the attempted robbery and then the 245 assault with the great bodily injury with not with the personal use of the firearm because it's not charged anymore. But Emily charging, it would have been an attempted robbery plus an assault with a deadly weapon plus great bodily injury plus gun usage. The robbery becomes the more important charge. Then you can still do the assault with a deadly weapon, but if the assault with the deadly weapon was to perpetrate the robbery, you can't be charged for both because one of the elements of the robbery is the assault. It's a lesser included crime. We're having all the crime talk. So because the robbery requires the assault to happen, the assault gets like lumped into the robbery and the robbery ends up being more time if you're convicted of it. But if it's an attempted robbery, then can you have the assault? You can plead them. You're not going to get convicted and go to prison on both where you get time. If there were multiple this gets into charging and sentencing schemes, but if there were two people, you can get time for both different crimes and do different amounts of time. But if it's same set of facts, multiple crimes, in most cases, you're not going to serve time for this, time for that, because they all get lumped together because it's a lesser necessary included. And then this kind of gives a little bit of illumination to how these new policies are working out. And the policy is the lowest crime that accounts for the action. And here, the lowest crime that accounts for the action would really be the theft of the dogs, which would disregard the shooting entirely, which I think people will be pissed about. But I also think that's what the policy is. And that's what the policy is. The defense attorney is going to be like, the policy is this. What the fuck y'all doing? The policy says you aren't charging my guy with robbery. And if you do charge them with robbery, you're not adding the allegations that increase the time. The allegations being the great bodily injury for, getting shot, the use of a gun to do the shooting. Those things won't be charged. Though I did have somebody get shot in the face. No, that was not my case. That was my friend's case. Get shot in the face. And the bullet did not penetrate their skull. They had like a butterfly bandage. And the judge was like, there's no great bodily injury there. And it's like, but they were shot in the face. And it's like, right. But the defense attorney's like, right. But there was only a cut. Like they were very lucky. But there also wasn't great bodily injury in that case. How much autonomy does an individual DA have with respect to the charges? It used to be that there were policies and that the DAs had some room within those policies. But the goal is to make sure that if you get arrested for LA County, for example, if you get arrested in Long Beach or you get arrested in, Pomona, you're going to get charged the same way because there needs to be equal justice. There needs to be a equal carriage of the law. So you don't want to get arrested in Long Beach and get charged with like everything under the sun. But if you had gotten arrested in Pomona, it would have been different and your charges would have been different. You have to treat people the same. So there are guidelines to treat people the same. Right now, the DAs are suing the district attorney's office because they have zero autonomy and are being forced to do things that a lot of them feel violate the law. And that is a conversation for another day. But the goal with guidelines is so that defendants similarly situated at a different courthouse don't get treated differently, because that's not equal justice. Like if you rob somebody in one area of Los Angeles County, it should be the same based on where you rob them. Yes, jurors are going to be different, but you should be charged the same way. There needs to be equality there because, the Constitution requires it. Video of dog robbery is on TMZ with audio. Okay, well, we have more facts. I have not watched it. And also, I would not always suggest it. Robberies can be hard. So it's at your own risk, buyer beware. I have not looked at it. Somebody returned the dogs to a police station, saw the dogs, returned them to a police station, thought they were the dogs. Lady Gaga put out a reward for $500,000, no question asked. So that reward should be forthcoming to the person who turned them in. All right, let me get to some more questions. You guys go ahead and put your question before the question so I can see it. My understanding from the person involved, Seth, on H3H3 was no consent was given for any kissing. And that might have well been. It doesn't change the analysis to make it a different type of assault. Like it's assault because there's no consent either way. So if they gave consent, it's not a trick. If they gave consent for person A and ended up kissing person B, there's still no consent. If they gave no consent to kiss person A or B, there's still no consent. So the analysis is really the same. But the intent is still what matters. The intent on David Dobrik and Jason Nash's part, and the intent there was to humiliate, really. And that becomes assaultive and civilly responsible for that intentional infliction of emotional distress. Yep, agreed. Question regarding JC. How is this any different than the police pretending to be a minor to catch predators online? So it's not different. It's really not different. The police pretending to be a minor to catch people online has different issues because it's state actors. James not knowing the age of the person isn't super relevant because the ages are not the age as known to the person doing the thing. The age is the biological age. So the age is the thing. I can tell you all day long, I'm 20. It doesn't make it true. And it doesn't matter if you believe it. You believing it still doesn't make it true. So if James believed the person was over 18, it doesn't matter under the laws as they are written right now. That's not a defense. Like mistake of age is not a defense. Let me keep going to questions. Can we just get a big thank you to our mods, by the way? We've covered some really heavy topics today. I'm sure there is a lot of stuff, and I appreciate the mods for taking on difficult conversations, because there are difficult conversations. Isn't the popularity of chipping, and I would assume these dogs were chipped, an easy way to track? I have no idea how chipping works. So I don't know if chipping can track their movements like a GPS, or if chipping is just that when you bring an animal into a vet's office, they can scan it and find out who the owner is. I don't know enough about chipping to know if it tracks their movements like Find My iPhone or not. My understanding was that if an animal gets lost and gets brought into a vet or a shelter, they can see if they're chipped and find their owner, not that they can track them like, LoJack. Question, doesn't bringing an armed firearm, I'm guessing that's firearm, not forearm, to a robbery show intent to harm, even murder? That's no. That's always how it appears to work where I live. So having a weapon can go into the conversation of premeditation, but the intent is still the intent. And there is definitely an argument that a shooting occurring to perpetrate a robbery does not have the specific intent to kill. It has the specific intent to rob. So there's an argument there, but in today's climate, would I charge this as an attempted murder? Well, I wouldn't be allowed to if I were still an LA County DA because it would go against policy. But it would really depend on what was said and what the facts were and what the victim said, and if the defendant was arrested and interviewed, what they said. It's very fact specific. So would I call this an attempted murder with what I know sitting here right now? Nope. Would I call it an armed robbery with great bodily injury? Yep. I hope that makes sense. So the dogs are more valuable than the life of the dog walker. Ellie, I don't think that that's true. The sentencing and charging policies as I see them prioritize decreasing incarceration over the experience of the victim, in my opinion. So are the dogs more valuable? No. It's just getting to the charges would be the least aggressive charge for the behavior. And in this case, the least aggressive charge in an armed robbery is just the basic theft. Question: in divorce, since pets treated as persons, not possessions, why was the charge for stealing not kidnapping? Because in criminal law, animals are not treated as persons. So kidnapping has to be a natural person. That is why, but that's a great question. Thank you. How long would they get behind bars? Are we talking about if we're talking about the people who took the dogs, if we're talking about a grand theft person, maybe not any. That might be that is the option to be a probationary offense. And right now, the district attorney's policies is that if probation is an option, probation is the default. So potentially not any. Thank you guys for the information on microchips. I don't know about microchips. I have always had house cats and not a dog. So let's keep going. Question: if JC has multiple victims or allegations from different locations, states, does that increase the chances of prosecution? Multiple victims always increases the chance of prosecution. A, it brings more evidence. B, it becomes a bigger problem. C, it becomes easier to prosecute because then it's one victim may not be believed. And this happens. I prosecuted. I've seen it. This happens where it's like, well, you wanted this or you wanted the clouts. Sex crimes are tremendously difficult to prosecute because there's a lot of bias to overcome for victims. But when it's multiple people, this is again, looking at the Me Too movement as an example, one actress that might've been like, oh, you're a snowflake, stop complaining. This is how the industry works. But when everyone came forward together, it was like, oh, and this was the societal, oh, fuck, that's a problem. I had conversations with individuals I knew who were like, I didn't realize that this was such a large common factor experience for women. I'm like, right, because you're not in spaces where women talk about this, but the women know because we talk about it. So that's where the power of multiple voices comes in because A, it's easier for a jury to wrap their head around. There's less for them to discount. And that's what it is. I did not know there was a security camera video, so I have not seen that. I was going by the facts as relayed by the LAPD. But again, the facts as relayed by the LAPD tend to lean towards armed robbery. But before Friday, I will watch it. And if I have updated thoughts, I will give you updated thoughts for sure. By logic, the person shouldn't have been carrying a gun, specifically if there's no document to have one. A gun is not to make you giggle. There is an attempt. I understand the logic of that, but the laws in California do not roll that way, nor do the charging guidelines of the DA's office. But I understand the thought for sure. The act of shooting someone should be the most important part of the crime. I don't disagree with you, but for not with the DA's new policies, for the before times. I don't know if the before times is the right way to talk about it, but in the policies that I worked under before I left the DA's office. So we're calling it the before times either way. In the before times, the shooting is important. the intent behind the shooting is the next most important, because some crimes require specific intent. Specific intent means you actually intended to do the fucking thing that you are doing specifically. General intent means I got in to drive a car. I didn't intend to hit that person, but I was driving my car. But that's an assault with a car because it's general intent. You had to intend to drive the car, not intended the person. Murder requires a specific intent, and there is a required intent to kill. That is why there are degrees of murder. When I talked about both the Breonna Taylor shooting and the George Floyd shooting, in both of those, I talk more about the intents and the different mind states that are required for homicide crimes. And we talk about the different intents. There are different intents, but intent to kill is a specific intent to kill. And that is the way that the law is set up, which is why you get things like heat of passion defenses and stuff like that. Mens rea is a tremendously important part of criminal prosecution. You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt someone else's state of mind, which makes somebody who wants to testify and say, but I just intended to rob them, well, then there's no attempted murder. They didn't intend to kill them. So this is where the legal analysis is maybe different from you going, or any of us going, not you specifically, but any of us going, but that seems fucked. Right. That's where the disconnect is. And that's the picky part of criminal law, especially when it comes to first degree murder, is proving that intent. Proving that intent is a big part of murder prosecution. You have to prove it. I love these questions. I love that you guys are thinking through this with me and hanging with me into 2 hours of let's talk about this and let's talk about all of it. Let's talk through the process of thinking through these things, because again, the knee-jerk response is this is all wrong. So, question, are there enhanced charges because of the use of a gun, like years added and they are served first and a sentence is consecutive? Terry D, this is a great question. Under the laws of the state of California and most states, there are sentencing enhancements with the use of a gun. Under the new district attorney policies, they are asking that those, they are requiring that those not be alleged. So yes, they exist. There is policy dispute over those right now because some of these laws say shall. And so the fight going on in the district attorney's office is if the law says the district attorney shall charge this, a district attorney can't say, yeah, I'm going to nope out of that. I'm just not going to do that. That doesn't mean a judge can't dismiss it. That doesn't mean it can't be dealt with in a plea deal. It doesn't mean that a jury can say, no, I don't agree. That's not proven. But when it says the district attorney shall charge, it means it shall be charged when the person is charged with the crimes. Then it has to be proven. What's happening with the new policies is the district attorney policy is you will not charge it. So the DAs are going, but the law says shall. And the DA is going, we're not doing that. And that is where the lawsuits are. Well, there are many, but that many sounds like a lot. There are some. I think there will be many, but there are some lawsuits right now. And there is currently an injunction regarding some of the policies saying that they can't be enforced because they violate the Constitution of the state of California. And what you don't need is criminal prosecutors violating the Constitution, no matter how much you like or dislike what they're doing. The Constitution is the Constitution is the Constitution. And that is the law of the land. So even if you don't like it, then you change the Constitution. You don't just go, we're not going to listen to that right now. We don't like it. No, the legislature has to change it. Now we're getting into government. James Charles is in Cali, kids in Canada, which 16 is consent, then which law applies, James? Well, the laws in the US apply to James. But right now, the facts on the newest case, I don't know if that kid's in Canada, but given this fact scenario, if there's a 16-year-old in Canada, the law might apply in Canada, but James is here. So the US laws with sending things to someone apply here. It doesn't matter if the law is different in Canada. James wasn't sitting in Canada. James was sitting here. So if there was a minor that was international, and if that person was 16 and James, it doesn't matter, 19, 20, 21, over 18, the federal law still applies, because the federal law still says you can't use the interwebs to send things to a minor. It doesn't matter if they're considered a minor there. Would that be an argument? Yes, but if you're in the US law applies, especially when it comes to criminal law. Thank you, Jakes. I try to do that. It's hard. How much time do you think the guy who shot the gun will be behind bars? I don't know if they will be. If the new sentencing guidelines are charging guidelines from the district attorney's office are charged as stated, and these guidelines keep changing. If they're charged as stated, they will not go to jail or prison. Kelly C., if charged with a misdemeanor, can that change David's? Those rules are changing too. Misdemeanors can impact it, but I don't know if it would practically impact it. I also don't know if that individual, I don't know how long ago this was, because there are statutes of limitations. There is a time frame when you can do this when you can bring charges against somebody. I don't know if that person's inclined to go to the police, and I don't know if the case is strong enough to not just get outright dismissed. So the assault case is tough. And again, with regard to David Dobrik, he's not the person actually perpetrating the assault. He's aiding and abetting a misdemeanor assault, which makes it tenuous at best. If there was a civil case, would it affect his status? No. Do I think a civil case in the David Dobrik, Jason Nash, Seth situation, do I think a civil case is the best one? Yep. Are there different situations with David Dobrik that are also fucking problematic? Yep. But in this case, I think the civil case is strongest, and there are still time limits for bringing those. I'm going to try to get to just a few more my thing just bumped. I'm going to try to get to a few more questions and then wrap up. I know I missed a few super chats while I was talking about topics. I'm sorry to those that I missed. I'm going to pull them up in the back end and read them. Lori Smith said, Emily and Fine Law Nerds, thanks again for the hard work, credibility, and integrity you bring to all your vids. And also, you are funny as hell. Thank you, Lori. I feel like today's not a lot of ha-has, because today we're talking about really serious shit. And it just is. I hate the new LADA. He is making a mockery of the justice system. There are a lot of people talking about a recall, and I'm all for it. He got elected. I feel like the advertising, I liked the previous DA. I liked Jackie Lacey. I worked for Jackie Lacey. Jackie was the first female district attorney of LA County, the first Black district attorney of LA County, the first Black female district attorney of LA County. She was and is an ethical prosecutor. She is a smart prosecutor. She had prosecuted all manner of crimes. I liked working with her. I knew her since I was a new DA in the office. She brought a lot of transparency and compassion to the office. Not everyone agreed with that. The money spent in the ad campaigns against her, I think a lot of Angelenos did not anticipate that what they were getting with the new DA was going to be as dramatic as it's been. And I think a lot of people were hoping for a more compassionate bail system, for a closer look at police involved shootings, but weren't anticipating all of the changes that have been made. So, can the dog walker sue the shooter? Civil is always an option with these things, and civil and criminal can both happen. The O.J. Simpson case is a very clear example of a criminal prosecution and then a civil wrongful death lawsuit. Yes, there can always be both. It's whether it's worth the money and whether there's anything there that you will get. So that's what it is with that. Question, does escalation not count towards mens rea despite including choices made in the moment? It is so fact specific. It's very, very fact specific, because you can make the decision to kill somebody in a split second. Like, premeditation can happen quickly. Mens rea can shift. But with the information that we have, with the information we have, the decision is the decision. It's really hard to fact scenario that kind of conversation, but it can, depending on the facts. People might be kicking themselves for letting Jackie Lacey go. Jackie's fantastic. Jackie's really fantastic. I don't like the way that they went after her, because I think a lot of people that went after her don't understand how much transparency she brought to the district attorney's office. But also, Jackie was a prosecutor, not a politician. She was never a politician. She saw changes that needed to happen in the office and brought them. I liked her as a boss very much. Thank you. Questions. What's your opinion on restorative justice? Is that even a thing there? Oh, this is a very much more nuanced conversation. I think there is always room for all different types of justice within a justice system. And I think a justice system needs to be diverse enough to deal with the problems that it faces. Just throwing people in jail or prison is not a justice system. There need to be variables and there need to be various options. There are a lot of practicalities that struggle. So if that's what we're talking about with restorative justice, depending on the definition of restorative justice, me thinking we're talking about kind of rehabilitation and alternative punishment schemes, there's always room for it. How those things get played out in practicality is a whole different thing and a very worthwhile conversation, but a longer and more nuanced conversation than we have to as we're wrapping up. Jennifer K said, I more meant that since the dogs have been taken and a new owner would probably take them to a vet since they are meant as pets and not for another purpose. Thank you. I'm going to get to a few last questions and then Bree, this is a great question. If someone is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, does that affect intent or consent or mens rea? I'm adding mens rea because I wanted to. Yes, it can, but no, not always. That's such a lawyerly answer, but yes, it can, but no, not always. Intoxication's not always a defense because you chose to get intoxicated and then you chose to do the next thing, but sometimes it can be. What about like felony murder charge for DUI? Like, is there a felony attempted murder? Yes, attempted murder is a felony, but no, there is not a felony murder rule where one law makes it a different law. In the California attempted murder, do other jurisdictions have like an attempted involuntary murder? I can't imagine because I don't know what the mens rea would even be on that. So attempted murder is attempted first degree murder. California doesn't have an attempted murder that's another thing, because if it's another thing, then it's an assault. And so it kind of defaults into assault or the robbery. Attempted murder is attempted first degree murder. I am trying to kill you and you did not die. That's what attempted murder is in California. It's not attempted manslaughter. It's not attempted involuntary. It's attempted first degree murder. Hopefully that helps. Would it be more difficult to prove the charge of attempted murder than robbery in the Lady Gaga situation? Oh, yep. Yes. On those facts, yeah, absolutely. Yep. The robbery's like, hey, you took shit, you intended to take shit, and you took it with force. That's essentially the elements of a robbery. And what we saw is somebody getting shot and dogs taken. The robbery on that, the facts aren't complicated. So with the new rules, this is with regarding the new district attorney. If someone sexually assaulted someone and then attempted to murder them, would they be charged with the attempted murder or would they be charged with two separate crimes? They would probably be charged with the lowest possible form of sexual assault under the new DA's charging guidelines. So with like a misdemeanor sexual assault and then with a actual assault, and then they might, if it's a felony actual assault, the sexual assault might just get dropped. So that again is my reading of the new guidelines based on that fact scenario, because the guidelines continue to change. You guys, it is almost 2 hours. If you haven't done the YouTube-y things, can you do the YouTube-y things, please? The liking and the thumbs upping and the following and the subscribing and the things. That would be amazing. Also, know that we are riding for a premiere video tomorrow at 11 a.m. And tomorrow or Thursday, we're expecting a new salty filing. So if you are not in the social media places where I can alert you, do that. Because when we decide to ride, I'm going to be like, law nerds, mount up. Bart, this is a very good and much longer question, but how is intent proven? Through argument, really. It's through the circumstantial evidence of the facts. Sometimes it's through the defendant's own statements. When we get to a case or covering a case, again, that involves mens rea, I will do a deeper dive into what mens rea is and what it means. And I'm sure there's other content regarding state of mind, but practically when you prove state of mind, you go through, for me, you go through in your closing argument all the evidence that goes to show what a person was thinking. And you ask the jury, look, all of this shows what the intent was. These statements show what an intent was. These actions show what an intent was. And then it's the jury's determination to say, yes, these facts mean this intent was there to a legal standard. No, it's not an easy thing. That's for sure. Playing devil's advocate, if multiple guys are contacting JC to try to get him to send nudes specifically and then expose him, could they be charged with entrapment? No, beyond authentic 1C. I think that's a fantastic question. Entrapment goes specifically to government actors entrapping you. Could he try to sue them civilly for some kind of emotional distress? Maybe. Is this something I think James Charles needs to be highly aware of? Yes. But if people are trying to get him to send nudes, it is on him to ensure that whatever he's sending is to somebody who is a consenting adult. Because at the end of the day, he's the one who can be in trouble, even if they're trying to get him to do it, which would be shitty. But it doesn't matter if they're underage. James has a young audience. He knows he has a young audience. He has to be guarded with that. And there should be people hopefully around him telling him, this is not going to go well for you. You need to find yourself a lovely 27-year-old and hang out with them. And it's hard. I get that it's hard. It's not hard when they have 16 in their bio. James Charles aside, I get that it's hard to always know how old people are online, but it's the adults' responsibility to be in adult spaces and to find adults in an adult way. Finding people on Snapchat doesn't always mean you're going to know their age. And that is something that the adult has to be mindful and aware of. I don't know what dating's like during COVID. I haven't had to do it. I don't know what dating's like with the internet because I'm so fucking old that my husband and I started dating before the 2000s. So we didn't have cell phones. Like, we called each other on the phone and we're like, what time are you picking me up? Okay. And then we got together and went out. When I was dating before that, when I was in high school, the other people around were in high school. So you kind of know they're the same age because it's like, oh, we're all in high school together. Like, I'm on a water polo team. You're on a water polo team. Hi. Are you 17? Great. It gets a little sketchy around senior year when people start turning 18 and then you kind of become mindful of it. You're like, oh, you're 18. Enticing, but I'm 14. That's probably not okay. But those older boys, man, I get it. But the older boys also have to stay away. And the laws vary when ages are close together, like an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old. There's variation there. We're not getting into that today. That's a whole nother conversation. And then when you're in college, the people around you tend to be around your same age. Everybody tends to be over the age of 18, and you meet people in a way that kind of gives it away. The internet's not that place. God damn it. I have scrolled through TikTok. I don't love the TikToks, but I've scrolled through TikToks and I'm like, holy shit, that child looks 11. Fucking hell. Why are they like, damn it, scroll. I don't like that at all. I'm like, the people I follow on Snapchat, I think the youngest people I follow on Snapchat are in their mid-20s. Dustin Daly might be the youngest person I follow on, not Snapchat. I don't have Snapchat, on TikTok. Maybe Creepshow. I don't know. They seem to be younger than me. But the people I follow tend to have gray hair. And I'm like, yeah, we're all around the same age. We make the same jokes. We seem to be Gen X. So that's where it is for me. So are there any good policies Gascon has implemented? Well, I think not holding people on bail for stupid drug crimes is a great thing. But that was already going in that direction with Jackie Lacey. What else? I think No, because that was going that way with Jackie Lacey too. A lot of the drug crimes had already been reevaluated with Jackie Lacey. And I think drug crimes should be dealt with differently than other crimes. And when I talk about drug crimes, I'm talking not, organized crime. I'm talking about street dealing drug crime, which I know is often connected to organized crime and gangs. But that said, prosecuting people for dumb drug offenses, possession level drug offenses and stuff, was already changing. And so people aren't prosecuted for that stuff anymore anyway. I think some of the misdemeanor bail stuff is good, but I also think you have to look at people's records. A lot of times people get picked up on misdemeanors and have lots of other stuff they also should be picked up on. But when you're not running it, you don't know. And then I would like to see some of the other stuff. I definitely think there's always room for compassion in criminal prosecution, but also criminal justice relies on two opposing sides. It's advocacy. You have a district attorney's office that generally, what does it say at the beginning of Law and Order? Stands for the victims, something like that. But the district attorney's office, the goal and the role is to prosecute people who commit crimes against the people of that county or that state or the US government, the people. It's to protect the communities. And the role of the defense attorneys is to protect the defendant from overreaches of government and from exploitation of the process and the system, and to ensure that their constitutional rights are absolutely adhered to. That is their job. The district attorney's job is to uphold the Constitution and to prosecute the people who did the thing. There are two roles, and I think those roles need to be separate, because that's how the system works. How would something like sexting and the nature of sexting be nationally monitored and made illegal? Well, the rules have to catch up to the means. And for adults, sexting is legal. It's just when it comes to minors. But the rules have to catch up to the methodology. So the rules being sent through the mail is not helpful. It needs to be sent digitally or otherwise, things like that. It's modernizing a lot of these rules and taking into account the fact that online is a thing. And the questions we're talking about in the chat can be addressed in laws. It can be spelled out. It just hasn't been done. I've talked about this in the Britney conversations that I've had. I've absolutely talked about it. We talked about that. I want to make sure. Oh, I said I was going to pull up and make sure I didn't miss any other super chats. And then we're going to wrap up. And the mods are like, yes, please. Thank you. We have lots more live streams this week, because we also have a members only live stream this week. That will be in the member tab. So let me see if I can find anything that I missed real quick and say hello. Beyond authentic, can someone with money be paying kids to trap James Charles? Again, that would be a very far out conspiracy theory. But if that were happening, James is still responsible. So you can't be entrapped if you don't do the thing. Like, if you don't send the pictures, there's no problem. So if you don't send the pictures, there's no problem. James has to stop sending the pictures. Steph says, I have so much respect for you on so many levels. Here's some coin in case they oh, this is definitely going to be demonetized. I know it's on my, oh no, Steph, absolutely. Thank you. You guys, look, monetization is not my first goal. Monetization is a bonus. I try to stay monetized because I like being a full-time YouTuber, but that important topics are important, and that's what comes first. Rebecca, I answered the question about the law. Lori, I got to that. Purple sneakers. I got very nervous when I see that a new season of YouTube SVU pop up. Yeah, that's exactly what this feels like. Shonda said, I have missed fellowship. So glad y'all are here. Hi, Emily. Hi, Shonda. Thank you. Melanie Kraken said, okay, I'm going to be the weirdo. Stargate series all the way. Not a weirdo. I think we need to put all the sci-fi series up against each other. Serena said, I hate to say this, but I'm going with the sequels. Don't hate to say it. I like the sequels too. Look, Kylo Ren. Lauren Trapp Cohen said, I am here. However, I am a cat. Well, meow to you and welcome. A jaded person of 30 years, a little off topic. Thoughts on Twitter charging for views? A lot. There goes a lot of EJs and other sponsors. Might also stop a lot of court case messiness. I think that what Twitter's doing, from my understanding, is that oh, my brain just stopped. I think that Twitter's under. Oh no, wait, that was an older super chat. I already answered that. I knew it sounded familiar. I'm going to answer it anyway. I think Twitter is charging for bonus content like a membership on Patreon or YouTube. Okay. We got to everything. Yes. Thank you. Emily, as these things come up, I said it at the beginning and I'll say it again. We go over legal stuff here, but we also talk about critical thinking. We talk about facts, not fuckery. And we talk about the way the law works, even when the way the law works is shit we don't like. And when you look at something and go, ew, wrong, bad, illegal, jail, gross, hate it the most, hate it forever. Why doesn't the law agree with me? Those are really important conversations, and we're going to keep having them, because when we all know what the law actually says, we can say, no, hard disagree. Let's fix this shit. And then we know when conversations come up in Congress and in government to go, okay, they're talking about changing the way social media is allowed to be sued. What if parents, yippee zippy zing, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. What if parents could sue Snapchat? What if parents could sue Snapchat and say, hey, one of your members is sexting my child? You think Snapchat would figure the fuck out how to block that? Do you think Snapchat would make members on its platform show an identification to be on the platform and age verify them? And then have, like, you know how licenses, when you're under 21, like in a lot of states, they're vertical if you're under 21, and then they're this way if you're over 21, like picture here. So it's really clear, like, ooh, I'm under 21. What if Snapchat did that? Like, your profile has a green bar above it when you're under 18. Would platforms figure this out if they could be sued? You bet they fucking would. You know why? Because they don't want to lose the money. So if platforms could be sued, would all this shit get figured out? Yep. Would they be blocking kids who are 13? Yep. Would they make it clear that kids are 13? Yep. You know why? Because they don't want to get sued. Follow the money. But the money goes to Congress, and Congress doesn't want to cost the bros any more money. So then we all get stuck in the middle with this. But imagine a world where social media could get sued for the poor behavior of the influencers that exploit their platform for money and views. I'm not saying all influencers do that. I feel like I'm a bad influence on y'all with all my cups. I try. So those are my thoughts. You guys, I think it's important to have this. I think it's important to have these conversations. So sometimes we're just going to have these conversations about topics in the news and breaking down the law behind them, even when there's not a court case to pull up and read, because y'all, we're going to have plenty of documents to read. I have a feeling, because Saltsy's not taking a motion for sanctions laying down. I feel like we're going to come out swinging, and that's going to happen this week. So we'll all be back here reading court documents again. I like it. Somebody said that we need to have, like, green for over 18 and red for under 18. That's exactly what it is. Green means go. Because you know what? Once you're over 18, do whatever the fuck you want with whoever the fuck you want. I don't care. Leave kids out of it. It goes so fast. It goes so fast. I know 16-year-olds want to be grown. But they're not. And it's so confusing to them. Oh, rant. I'm not ranting. I've been on for 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's confusing to the 16-year-old brains because they want to be grown. And especially for girls, they see the media promoting them as grown, promoting them as sexy, promoting them as desirable, promoting them as Charlie D'Amelio, who's also a kid. They promote them as adults. They're not adults. They are not grown. Their brains are not done developing yet, but they want to be grown. Also, the hormones at that age. So good. So many hormones. So many hormones. But that's why we can't let adults take advantage of them, because their brains aren't done developing yet. And they're flooded with hormones that I miss, to be frank. Hormones that were great. The hormones are very different, but hormones that also lead to really bad choices, which is why we protect them, because they are children. They do not know everything. Can 16-year-olds and 16-year-olds get into trouble? Yep. Guess what? When I was working in juvenile, the youngest father that I had in my court was 13 years old. And the defense attorneys would be like, but he's going to be a father. I'm like, he is a father to child, but he is not going to be a father. He is 13. Just because that shit works doesn't mean we should be letting it work. So that is my third rant for the day. I have ranted all over this here internet. I have all the thoughts. Either way, we talk about the legal shit behind the pop culture stories you want to talk about, because sometimes we just have to talk about this shit. We just have to talk about it. It's important. And we will be back to reading documents probably tomorrow. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. Do the YouTubey things. Do the subscribey things. I love you. I will see you in the next one. 7th wrap up. I almost hit myself. Did you see that? I'm going to hit myself in the face. I'm going to just stop now. It's time to just stop now. It's time to stop now. Connect with me everywhere. I'm at the Emily D. Baker. If you guys want to join the text, just text Emily.com. If you want to join the channel, lawnerdsunite.com. Happy to have you. Support what we do here on the YouTube.